There we are, right? We're back. And Funkified Maniacs worldwide across the globe, Silver Sneaker members, new members, YouTube subscribers, and those Facebook live streamers. We are at our favorite location, remote, and we're doing the palm stretches part 2 or part deuce. As you can see, we got a nice, beautiful sky today with, I don't know what this is called because I hardly ever use this, so I guess it's my skylight in my car. Cars come with all these fancy gadgets, and I probably use maybe 2 of them, but I'm paying for probably 50 of them. And I'd rather just have a throwback car. But I got this car. It brings you a beautiful scenery, and I'm bringing you beautiful scenery today as well, as we're doing palm stretches part 2. If you've done part 1, we're just going to add to those exercises. So I hope you're ready. I hope you're prepared, as we do utilize our hands a lot throughout our journey in life, throughout our days, no matter if it's holding onto the steering wheel, texting, or just sitting in a chair for long periods of time. Those shoulders eventually have an impact on those hands, and those hands have an impact on those shoulders, and it all goes together because you got this glenohumeral joint that runs all the way down from that humerus into that wrist region, and it impacts the hands and the wrist, fingers, and the cervical spine impacts that as well. So if you're not aware, that C1 through C7 of your cervical spine impacts the hand movement. So it has nothing to do with your thoracic spine. It has everything to do with your cervical spine and the movement of your hand. So again, you want to work on those shoulders, you want to work on those hands, and you want to work on that neck region throughout these stretcher exercises. Again, it's the Stretcher, and I'm your host, Jesse Swear, nationally recognized inclusive fitness trainer, Silver Sneaker Flex instructor. You can find out more about me by visiting my website. Right here it is. There it is. There, right? Nice and front and center today, and I'm front and center as well, as we want to get started. And if you recall last week, you want to make sure if you're in your car, you take that seatbelt off. I already did, and you want to sit up on that edge of that chair. You want your chest out. You want your shoulders up, back, and down. You want those ears over your shoulders. You want to lengthen and elongate that spine as you're doing that. And if you are, again, in that seated position, anchoring those feet, toes over knees, knees over hips, hips over shoulders, and tucking the belly, tucking the tailbone, and just working on relaxing the neck muscles, relaxing those shoulder muscles, and dropping those shoulders into that rib cage as we get started here. A few other things you want to remember as well is if you have any lightheadedness, pain, dizziness, discomfort, or fatigue as you're doing this stretcher, hit that pause button, come back a little bit later. The other thing as well is we have that virtual liability. You should always consult with your physician before engaging in any physical activity program. By participating in this online exercise with me, you assume all dangers, hazards, risks of such participation. Exercises demonstrated by the instructor on this online class can be demanding. If you're unable to safely perform these exercises, again, please modify them or choose a different set of exercises. I know some of you are at home. You might have an injury, you might have a disability, you might have a ischemic stroke, you might have some paralysis, you might be just working with one side of the body and not both sides, which would be unilateral, not bilateral. So then what I ask that you do is that you do modify. You use a wall, you use a chair, you use your hand to get those stretches in, as hopefully you're going to be able to mirror me throughout. You get to that number 3 part is breathe. You want to breathe, inhalation, exhalation. I know I just spit all that out, right? I just kind of dropped it all to you without breathing, but I was breathing. That's why I'm able to talk. And then 4, rate of perceived exertion. It is a stretcher, so it is a slower down version. It is a 1 through 3 scale. 1 being you're relaxed, you're confident, no matter if you're in your seat in your car, if you're at home at your desk, or you're in your living room with the 2 dogs running around barking. This is a nice, quiet scenery, no dogs, right? Although some of you probably miss them. I'm not missing them right now because they had me up all night because it was hot and they just need some haircuts. So we try to keep them short so that they don't wake me up and disturb my beauty sleep as well. Well, anyway, to that number 1, relax, confident. Number 2, you're able to shift your weight, although we're not really shifting our weight, but you're able to get additional stretches. You're able to breathe, you're able to work through the motions, you're able to stretch and do all the activity that I'm asking you to do. If you get to that 3 where you feel like your blood pressure is going up, or you're overexerting, or you're feeling discomfort as you're doing some of these stretches, as we're not even going to just do palm stretches a day, but we're going to add some wrist stretches. I don't think we're going to get to any finger stretches in particular, like single finger stretches, but we're going to probably get to that hand stretch. as we go through that stretch of the day. But if you feel any of that pain, discomfort, the heart rate's going up, blood pressure's going up, you're exerting too much, again, hit that pause button, come back, or just drop it down a notch, because it's not worth trying to break a finger or break a wrist to try to mimic the exact same motion that I'm doing, because again, I'm not very flexible in my hands as well, but those hands do assist with adding, what would I say, greater mobility to your life. They allow you to do things that you wouldn't typically be able to do. So you want to make sure that they're healthy. And then you get to that number 5, old trusty water bottle. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. As you can tell, I'm almost done with mine. I'm all the way down here, but I still got to do 2 more of those. Help me through my day. So again, hydrate. Let's get moving. Let's get cracking. Let's get working, and let's enjoy this weather. It is a stretcher too. Throw those deuces up. There we go. All right. So if you remember last week, what I did was I kind of just relaxed my shoulders. I sat up in the edge of that chair, as I am sitting up in my vehicle right now, and I'm tucking my belly, tucking my tailbone. I have my shoulders up, back, and down, and I'm just resting those elbows into the rib cage, and I'm just bringing those hands in, and I'm just trying to find that center for you, and I'm just pressing them together. Elbows again are resting in on that rib cage, and I'm just getting, again, a palm stretch. So this is just to stretch the palms out. It does hit the wrists, so if you've had carpal tunnel, or if you have some discomfort, or if you haven't been doing maybe your bench pressing correctly, or you're just, you're rolling around in your wheelchair and you're using those hands a lot, this will assist, not to build calluses, but to really stretch out that palm and stretch out those wrists as well. So it just looks like a prayer. And again, you're relaxing those shoulders. As you can see, I'm dropping my shoulders down from this video. They're not up and contracted. They're just relaxed, drop down, and I'm pressing in, and I'm getting a nice palm stretch. And you can do this palm stretch, 5 to 8 times. You can just relax it, wiggle those fingers, right? Little finger stretch there, and then just push back in. You can hold it for a static stretch of 20 seconds. Or you can even hold it longer for that static isometric stretch. But again, it's really just to warm up the palms. You're going to probably start feeling some heat as well as you do this, and you're going to feel some tightness in those wrists. But again, you're getting that palm stretch. Now, you can change the dynamic as I wiggle those fingers, and you can do your palm stretch with taking your fingers a little wider and spreading them and doing the palm stretch like this, and pressing, and it just changes the dynamic of that palm stretch, because now those fingers have to do some work as well, and you can push back and forth on one of them, but that's for another day. But it just gives you a modification along the way if you are having a difficult time doing that palm stretch with those fingers together like I am right now. And as I'm demonstrating it, you can always separate them, and then I will show you that at some point in time. But that's your palm stretch. We want to go to now the next exercise that we go off that palm stretch, and that would be that side bend, or not necessarily the rotation, but the side bend, sort of like we do with our neck, and we side bend that neck. We're going to do the same thing with that palm stretch. So again, shoulders aren't tight, they're relaxed, they're dropped down, elbows are dropped into the rib cage. I know you can't probably see my rib cage, but you can see this. Find your grind at jesseswear.com. And if you want to find your grind, there is an opportunity for you to find it, although I'm pretty fully booked, so you're going to be on a waiting list. Bring those hands together just like this. Hopefully you enjoy this video. And again, it's a palm stretch. You're pushing, adding some tension, and then I'm just going to shift to the right, just like that. So I almost make an angle, as you can see that, like an elevation, a slope. I'm creating a slope on those hands, and then I'm back to that center. And then I'm going again, and I'm just dropping down, and I'm getting a side bend of those wrists. So although these are palm stretches, guess what they're working? They are working that wrist. They are working those palms, because I'm pushing down. That left hand is pushing down on that right palm, and that right palm and that right wrist is bending. So I'm actually adding some pressure to that, and it's my pressure. So it's really isokinetic. So it's almost the amount of pressure that I'm applying to that wrist is what's being demonstrated, or what's being applied to the wrist, where again, it's isokinetic, it's isometric, It's what's being applied to that joint. But I'm trying to get a little farther each time. So I come back up, I do that stretch, and then I come back down, and I'm going to do that one more time and make it an even 5 times, as I believe that right side has gone a little farther and that left side has been able to push down like a pancake. Now, speaking of pancakes, I could go for some of those pancakes out there. So if you have any pancakes, some whole grain pancakes. The last time I went to Denny's, I had these really nice, good whole grain pancakes. And let me tell you what, they were delicious. If you want to have some protein in your pancakes, there's some Kodiak cakes that you can get as well and add a little bit of additional protein into them. And I'm not getting paid for that little commercial there, so that's a plug. And Kodiak cakes, if you want to give me some additional revenue here, go ahead, send it my way. But pancakes, that's what we're kind of making right here. Squeeze, prayer, and then I'm dropping it to the other side. So again, I know that that left side is tight. I'm feeling it. But I'm going to bring it back into that prayer mode. And again, I'm going to do 5 times through here. And hopefully by the time I'm done, you're going to see that slope is pressed over just a little bit farther as I'm holding that just a little bit longer. Again, this is another great exercise for those that use the computer. Use your iPhone, use your Android, and you type away. Stenographer, you know, IT, you use the phone a lot, you write a lot. I mean, because it is going to really assist with any type of discomfort, carpal tunnel. And as you can see, those hands are dropping farther and farther as I do it. So that is the goal of doing this stretcher class, is that when you start, you might be here on that slope, but we want to get that slope all the way down. So we want to change it. So look at that, pressing it down, and that slope has changed over time, over those 5 different times that I've done it, and I'm kind of just holding it. So again, the longer you hold it, what happens is those muscle fibers, right, they do extend, they do stretch, and that's what you want to really do. You try to want to elongate them, but you might feel those sarcomeres tearing a little bit. Those are your muscle fibers, and they're sending signals right now to your brain that, oh my goodness, I'm feeling that. So that's why you want to shake it off, not like Taylor Swift, but shake it off and not rub it off either like Jay-Z. You're not going to brush those shoulders off, but you might have to, because we're moving to that next exercise, and we want to keep on moving, and we want to do a rotation now. So when I say rotation, you're saying, how can you do a rotation? Well, we're going to rotate because of these hands. Look. Yes, they circle. Although they're not necessarily a ball and socket like your hip or your shoulder joint, they do allow you to do almost a full circular motion as I go to that left and then that right. But again, I'm pushing them together. I'm relaxing those shoulders again as I kind of just jumped into it. But let me unjump out of that. So again, take the stiffness away from the shoulders. Relax those shoulders, chest is out, shoulders up, back and down, elbows are into that rib cage, and then bring those hands together, rest in them, elbows onto that rib cage, and then I'm just going to go forward, right, flex forward, and then I'm going to rotate to my right and then back to the left. So I'm going to that right and then back to the left, and I'm just working on a rotation of the wrist. So it's a rotation and a rotation, and I'm just rotating it through, just like that. There you go. And again, this will help as well as you rotate forward. You're just right trying to dip down, and you're trying to really flex forward. And as I stop and come back to that center, I want to go the opposite direction as well and then pull back. So I'm going and flexing forward. I'm going to that left side, and I'm pulling them back towards me. And again, I'm really working on side bending on that side, and then pulling back, side bending, going forward, and I'm just rotating almost in a circular motion. Now again, it can't be a perfect circular motion because the wrist is not a ball and socket joint, but it gets close, especially if you have some mobility in that wrist. And then you want to shake them off as well. So I went right, I went left, and I kind of went forward. Now, you can always come back first and roll it forward, or you can go forward and then roll it back. Again, Either way, you can go clockwise, you can go counterclockwise. The goal is, again, just to continue to increase the range of motion and take away some of that discomfort in those wrists, which we'll get to that next exercise, as I kind of was just showing you some of those motions, as you can do a flexion, right? Flex down, and then you can bring back almost like you're casting. As I drop down, bring back, touch my sternum, fling them forward, touch my sternum. As you can see, those wrists are staying together and those palms are staying together as well. And I'm just flicking them forward like I'm fly fishing or have an axe, and you can make it active, or you can just kind of make it static and hold it forward in that flexion position and then bring it back and hold it in that extended position, where if I turn, my hands are kind of really in that sternum, as you can see right here, and they're turned back. Or you can flex forward as I turn, and you can see that they're flexed forward. So you can get flexion or you can get extension, and you really just want to work on that motion going forward. And as you can see, those shoulders kind of roll forward as well as I do it, which is okay, but you want to try to take as much shoulder flexion out of the maneuver, because you don't want to use the traps, you want to use those wrists. So again, I'm in a confined space, so it's a little harder for me to demonstrate that effectively and efficiently or functionally through the proper range of motion. So again, you want to try to take away the shoulders as you do that. And as you can see, I do a little bit of a better job with my hands down. Now, clearly I had my hands up a little higher because I was trying to show you what I was doing. But again, you want to try to have those elbows into the rib cage and pulling them back into the rib cage. And again, you will get a little bit of shoulder movement, as you can see, forward, but it's definitely less than when I do it this way. As you can see, the shoulders really kind of elevate and ascend, and we want to try to take that away, because that's when you start using those traps, and that's when you get some overuse, not only in the trap, but then you start straining your neck, and then it affects your rotator cuff as well. So again, elbows tight, relax, and go forward, hold it, isometric, bring it back, hold it, and you get, you know, extension or a flexion. And then the next exercise we want to get to is we want to get some of those wrist stretches, okay? So some of those wrist stretches that add to that palm stretches, or the palm stretches that we do, or is just kind of just taking that left hand as I kind of just float it up here, right? And I just try and drop it down like I shot a basketball, right? If you ever played basketball, you kind of shoot. I know it's the NBA playoffs right now. And I'm just going to really just press right here on top of my metacarpals, and I'm pressing down, and I'm just really stretching that wrist region, right? So again, relaxing the shoulder, dropping that elbow into the rib cage, drop, and then press down. So I'm not pressing on the fingers, I'm pressing on the metacarpals, and I'm pressing more up near that wrist region, and I'm pressing down. So I'm trying to show you what I'm doing. I'm pressing down, and I can feel the discomfort right now as I just put a little bit of light pressure on that wrist. I am really feeling that wrist as I flex it down. Now I'm not extending, I'm flexing that wrist in a downward motion, where I'm trying to really curve those fingers back to my forearm, which they're not getting there, but I can really feel the discomfort and the tension and relief as well as I stretch the wrist region. And again, we want to relax the shoulder, so I'm going to drop down here and kind of just really relax that shoulder, so I'm not holding it up here and putting extra pressure on the shoulder or on the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral. And I'm just kind of getting that stretch. And you can hold this for 20 seconds. You can do an active type where you're just popping it up and popping down. I would suggest you do more in a static, as the active is a little more advanced, and that's going to be for more explosive type exercises. If you're doing any type of explosive exercises at home, which you probably might not, but if you are, then you could do a little more active. But static works best. less likely that you're going to injure yourself, and then you're going to keep all those tendons and ligaments and that structure in good operating form, especially if you have carpal tunnel or if you have some wrist discomfort as well. And then you're just going to shake that out, and I can really feel that as I do a wrist circle to take off that wrist pressure. So when we want to go to that right side, I'm going to do the same thing with that right side. So that right side is just hand out just like this. Yep. Kind of like I'm just resting and chilling. But we're not chilling. We're not resting and we're not relaxing. So we want to take, and I'm going to grab up here again, and I'm pressing down. So I'm trying to show you a little better in that motion, and I'm just pressing down and get my hand right there like that. And again, nice static stretch, nice and upright. You can do this from a standing position. You can do this from a seated position. You can do this, it's very inclusive. You can do this while you're driving. You can push this up against a wall if you don't have the ability. You can use your thigh to do this exercise as well. As I'm just really stretching the top, I'm doing a flexion of that wrist. I'm not doing an extension. The extension will be pushing back and extending back, but then that's where you get, guess what? You get those side bends, right? Where you get that extension on that lower half. So right now I'm really just pressing down, and I'm trying to get an additional stretch on top of that wrist, and pressing down and pressing down and pressing as comfortably and what I can tolerate, as again, I can feel the stretches and I can feel those tendons elongate, and I can feel the pressure that I'm applying. So apply the amount of pressure that you're comfortable with, apply the amount of pressure that you can tolerate, apply the amount of pressure on that wrist that allows you to get a greater sense of elongation, and not necessarily hypertrophy, because we're not trying to grow muscle, but we're trying to elongate those tendons that connect that wrist and allow you to do those things that you do throughout. So the more that you can keep these wrists healthy, the more you can keep these shoulders healthy, the more you can keep the neck healthy, you keep your mind healthy. And if you can keep all that healthy, then you'll continue to grow and you will continue to prosper in all these different exercises. And I'm kind of just holding it right there, and then I'm pulling it up, and as I pull it up, I can really feel it. So the next exercise that we will go to, and we will go to that, but only next week, is we'll go down to those finger stretches, and we'll start getting the finger stretches from the wrist. So we got more wrist stretches today. We got a little more palm stretches. I demonstrated some more of those side bends, the flexion, the extension back, try to keep those shoulders dropped. And then when we get to the palm stretches, three, we will bring you a little bit more of those finger stretches along the way. So again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being with me. This is the uncut version. Unlike most of those YouTube videos out there, you get the real deal and you get the real thing, because I don't have time to go and cut and paste, because this is on the road. So I hope you enjoy that scenery. Peace, my friends. Go in peace. Have a great day. Hit up my website. Hit my YouTube page up. Hit Google. Leave me a review. And keep on coming back for more of these. This was the stretcher. Deuce. Palm stretches. Peace, my friends.